Okay, next up is the Chief Scientist for Homeland Security. He was supposed to speak last night, but Sam Howerton got to spend a delightful hour and 15 minutes on the tarmac. So grateful for that time in the plane, I'm sure. Dr. Howerton has a wonderful bio. You can read it in our program. In the interest of time, I want him to blind us with science. Come on, I had to.
All the Gen X references, I mean, they just land right on me. I love it. So good morning. Thanks for joining us here today. I am sorry that I missed last night and the ribbon cutting ceremony. I'm not actually going to give the remarks that I was going to give to that. This is a slightly different group, and so I'll try to talk to you more as colleagues, right, from the scientific disciplines. In my time today, I want to talk a little bit about context, because that's a good chunk of what my job is about, right, setting the context for Homeland Security and science. And I want to do that by hopefully answering three questions that's probably rattling around in your mind, right? One, why does DHS fund research and development to begin with? Two, why does it fund academic centers within our research portfolio? And three, probably most important, right, why does it fund NCITE in particular? So let's talk about why does DHS fund research and development writ large? I mean, if you pick up the paper and look at what DHS's the media says about it, right, we focus on a lot of things like disaster preparedness and response, border issues, certainly counterterrorism fits into that. Research and development for DHS is not about threats, at least from my perspective. It's actually about opportunity, right? It's an opportunity to be ready for what's coming, not necessarily addressing the problem that we have today. That's not to say that a lot of our research dollars don't go into addressing the gaps for our components, but where we are trying to be, right, is equally, if not more important than where we are today. And that is why we invest in research and development, the same as our colleagues at the Department of Defense or the intelligence community. You don't want to be fighting yesterday's war. You don't want to be addressing yesterday's Homeland Security challenges. You want to be ready for the ones that are coming. And so why do we fund academic centers then? Well, so I'm going to be a little bit biased, right? I'm a product of the academic community. I think that all good ideas start at universities. Yeah, you might have the unicorns that lead to Meta or Apple or something like that, right? But really, the best ideas come out of the university system that we fund here. And so it's important for us to tap into that as we look to the future. Academic centers allow us to leverage the research that's funded by other departments and agencies, but more importantly, to focus in on the people and the ideas that you're generating on a day-to-day basis. And that's something that's absolutely, positively critical for us going forward. A lot of folks will ask, too, like, well, why don't you just ride the coattails of the Defense Department or the intelligence community, right? Seems kind of logical, or even the NSF and some of the other basic science funders. And the reality is that it's because the work that we do is a little bit different, as all of you know, right? As a domestic agency, we really do have to focus on the protections that are enshrined in the Constitution and the laws of the United States. And I think the academic community appreciates that sometimes in a way that others do not. So let's end with the why NCITE. Why are we here today? Why are we doing all this sort of stuff? So you're going to hear from the Deputy Homeland Security Advisor, who's going to talk about the threat space. And the reality is that the counterterrorism threat is evolving. Just like the threat space in general is evolving. It's being driven by the democratization of science and the democratization of technology. And all you have to do is look at what's going on in world events to understand that. We fund centers, when we fund NCITE in particular, to try to maintain an awareness of that evolution and be prepared for it going forward. But here's the real reason I think that we fund NCITE and the other centers. The real reason. It's the students. So I've been in government 20 years. In fact, when I started my career, I was trained as an academician, like probably most of you are. And it was only through serendipity that I ran into an Army colonel that was like, you can do something different than what you were trained to do. And I ended up doing government service. NCITE and the centers are training the people that are going to replace me. I mean, after 20 years, you would think, I'm the graybeard, right? But the reality is it's not true. I'm still the young whippersnapper in the government. And NCITE, in particular, when we talk about terrorism and counterterrorism space, is absolutely critical in providing that pipeline into the U.S. government. Serendipity cannot be our strategy for replacing the scientists and engineers at a time of such massive change, both technological and sociological. Lastly, I'd say that we focus on NCITE too, because the problems of the world today cannot necessarily be solved through an engineering challenge. In my career in the government, I've noticed that there is a tendency to want to build a new widget, to develop a new thing, right, to solve the problem. But at the end of the day, it's all about people. It's the intersection of the sociological and the technological, right, that help us identify what the problems are and then the solutions to them. And so NCITE in particular fits this very unique role in this overlapping Venn diagram space for the Department of Homeland Security. I am going to be here the rest of the day, all day tomorrow. I hope to get to meet all of you one-on-one or in groups. I certainly want to meet the students, right, because the government needs you. So I certainly hope that the rest of the day is very fruitful for you. Thank you very much.